There's something quietly powerful about reading the private thoughts of a man who ruled an empire. Not speeches, not declarations, but fragments of self-discipline, notes to remember what really matters. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, sat with his thoughts during war, illness, political games, and instead of writing to impress others, he wrote to strengthen himself. His words are for no audience, yet they resonate centuries later because they speak directly to the part of us that struggles, hopes, and seeks to do the right thing when no one is watching. He begins not with grand ideas, but with gratitude. He lists the people in his life who shaped his character: teachers, family, mentors. From his grandfather, he learned good morals. From his father, modesty and manliness. From his mother, piety and generosity. Before anything else, he grounds himself in the idea that who he is shaped by the virtues of others. And so are we. He teaches us that power and self-control begin with appreciation, not of wealth, but of influence. The people who mold us deserve our remembrance. The quiet lessons passed down from one generation to the next, those are more valuable than riches. And already we learn something profound. Humility is not weakness, it's the starting point of strength. From here, he moves into discipline. Not the rigid kind that breaks a person, but the kind that reminds you why it matters to wake up and keep going. When you arise in the morning, he writes, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. And yet he knew how hard it is to get out of bed. He asks himself, if you were made to do the work of a human being, to serve, to think, to care, why resist what you were built for? He doesn't romanticize discomfort, but he refuses to let laziness take root. He challenges himself, not by shouting, but by reasoning with himself. This is where his philosophy comes alive. Life isn't about grand victories, it's about doing what needs to be done, consistently, even when it's uncomfortable. In a world full of distractions, complaints, and self-indulgence, he draws the line. Focus. Control your thoughts. Control your responses. That's real freedom. He brings up the idea of the inner citadel, a place within you that nothing can disturb, unless you let it. Think about that for a moment. How often do we let others control our emotions? A rude comment ruins our day. A setback makes us question our worth. Aurelius reminds us, the storm can rage outside, but your mind can remain still. That's not easy. It takes practice. But it starts with recognizing what is yours to command: your judgment, your reaction, your principles. Everything else, your reputation, your wealth, even your body, is fleeting. The world changes, people come and go, but your integrity, that's yours to protect. And that inner stronghold becomes your anchor. Not pride, not stubbornness, but calm, reasoned, moral strength.
He often talks about death not as a morbid obsession, but as a way to sharpen perspective. He asks, why fear what is natural? Everyone dies. The only tragedy is not living well. This isn't about thrill-seeking or chasing bucket lists. It's about choosing to live according to your values while you still have breath. To waste life on resentment, vanity, or pleasure is a tragedy. He calls on himself, and by extension, us, to rise above the trivial, to see life as a gift, not guaranteed. When death is always near, life becomes urgent, sacred. You stop chasing applause and start chasing virtue. He returns again and again to the importance of this view, that everything passes. If you feel pain, it will pass. If you feel joy, it will pass. So act in harmony with reason, not emotion. That is the path to peace. But Stoicism isn't emotionless. Marcus knew grief, frustration, and fear. What he teaches isn't suppression, but clarity. Don't be ruled by what you feel. Observe it, understand it, choose how to respond. If someone offends you, ask, did they mean it? Are they misinformed? Are they suffering? Then let go of the sting, because vengeance or anger won't fix what's broken. Compassion will. Patience will. Wisdom will. And these are within your power to cultivate. He reminds us again and again, the universe is change. Life is opinion. And if you can shift your opinion, you can shift your life. Don't attach yourself to status. Don't seek luxury. Don't crave recognition. Those things fade. But the good within you, the reasoned part, the ethical part, that's eternal. It doesn't need praise to exist. It doesn't need an audience to grow. It's fed by silence, by reflection, by right action. That is the true reward of a life well lived.
He returns often to the idea of nature, not in the green trees and fields sense, but in the nature of existence. He believed that every person has a purpose, a role to play in the larger web of life. Just as the eye is made for seeing and the hand for grasping, the human being is made for reason and cooperation. So when you act selfishly, when you lie or take from others or act unjustly, you are going against your nature. You are betraying your own design. To live in harmony with yourself is to live in harmony with the world. When others harm you, it is their ignorance, not your fault. When hardship arrives, it is not a punishment, but part of nature's process, and you are part of nature. This is where his calm comes from, not detachment, but deep connection. He doesn't argue with reality. He aligns with it. He sees obstacles not as curses, but as chances to practice virtue, patience, endurance, forgiveness, wisdom. In that way, everything becomes useful. Every difficulty is a tool. This mindset is especially powerful when he writes about insults and criticism. He asks himself, is this true? If yes, then I must improve. If not, why should I care? Either way, I benefit. And he's not being naive. He knows the court is full of liars and flatterers. He knows people twist the truth. But he also knows that his peace doesn't depend on their behavior. It depends on his principles. This is something we forget today, in a world addicted to approval, likes, and validation. We outsource our identity. Marcus says, take it back. Be content with being honest, diligent, and fair, even if no one sees it. Because your audience is not the crowd. Your audience is your conscience. Over and over, he reminds himself to be humble, to remember how small he is in the face of time. The names of great emperors have faded. The accomplishments of heroes are forgotten. So what are we really? Dust in the wind, unless we choose to live with intention. He urges himself to strip away the illusion of permanence, to not waste time chasing status or luxury, to walk through the world light and free, like a soldier moving quickly to the next post. He doesn't mean you shouldn't love people or build a life. He means you shouldn't cling to anything that time can take away. And that includes praise, comfort, and even your own body. You are not your possessions. You are not your reputation. You are what you do, day by day, hour by hour, choice by choice.
He talks often about the logos, the rational principle that governs the universe. To him, this is a kind of divine logic, a structure that underlies all chaos. And because we have reason, we are connected to that order. So the goal isn't to escape life, it's to align with it. To accept what happens, not passively, but wisely. To say, I will face what comes with dignity. If I can change it, I will. If I cannot, I will endure it. Because complaining changes nothing, but courage can change everything. One of the most striking ideas he offers is this. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. It's a reminder that most suffering comes not from reality, but from how we interpret it. A delay becomes anger, a loss becomes despair. But these are interpretations. We can choose new ones. We can see setbacks as lessons. We can see pain as a test. We can see endings as beginnings. And that isn't denial, it's control, not over the world, but over ourselves, and that's where all power begins. He writes too about fame and how little it matters. Even the greatest men are forgotten. Even the best achievements are erased. So why waste your life trying to be remembered? Instead, he says, focus on being useful. Be kind. Be fair. Do your duty. That is enough. That is noble. And it relieves us of so much anxiety. We don't need to build monuments. We need to build character. And if we can do that quietly, faithfully, each day, we have lived well. He sees himself as a part of nature, not separate, not above, but woven into the whole. Just as a leaf falls from a tree at its appointed time, so too must we let go when our time comes. There is no tragedy in this, only natural rhythm. And so death is not to be feared, it is to be accepted. What matters is how you live before it. Did you help others? Did you grow in wisdom? Did you rise after failure? Did you act with integrity? That is the measure of a life. Not how long it was or how famous it became, but how true it was to its purpose. He writes not for applause, but for clarity. These pages are a dialogue with himself, not to impress, but to remember, to return to center. And that's what makes them timeless. Because we all drift, we all forget who we want to be. We all fall into patterns of blame, vanity, and laziness. But we can return with discipline, with silence, with thought. That is the Stoic path, not cold, but courageous, not indifferent, but wise.
As he grows older, Marcus becomes even more focused on preparation. Not preparation in the sense of controlling outcomes, but preparing his character, preparing for loss, for injustice, for change. He says each day, you must expect to meet people who are selfish, rude, ignorant, or dishonest, and be ready not to be surprised, not to be thrown off, not to join them in their weakness. He reminds himself that these people act as they do because they don't know any better. If they truly understood reason, virtue, and the unity of mankind, they would not behave as they do. So your job isn't to hate them, it's to stay steady, to act with integrity despite them, to remember that your power lies in how you respond. One of his favorite metaphors is the inner citadel. Imagine your mind as a fortress, walled, silent, and strong. Outside, storms rage, insults fly, accidents happen. But inside, you are still. You choose what enters. You decide what thoughts take root. This image captures the core of Stoic power. Not the ability to dominate others, but the ability to rule yourself. And this is something no one can take from you. Not poverty, not disease, not failure. If your mind is disciplined, you are free, no matter the chaos around you. He reflects a lot on time, how little we have, how much we waste. He writes that we live as if we were going to live forever, as if we have endless years ahead, but we don't. Most of what we fear will happen never does, and most of what we ignore is what truly matters. The present moment, for example, the only time we actually have. We distract ourselves with the past, fantasize about the future, but forget to live now. And the Stoic response isn't to panic, it's to focus. Be here, breathe here, do good here, because soon this moment will be gone, and with it, your chance to act. Marcus doesn't believe in separating thought and action. He sees philosophy not as words, but as deeds. It must be lived. You can read all the books you want, he says, but unless you change how you behave, how you speak, how you treat others, how you handle adversity, it means nothing. Philosophy is not for the classroom, it's for the battlefield of life. For when your friend betrays you, when your plans collapse, when your body fails, that's when Stoicism matters. That's when you see who you really are. There's also a deep sense of gratitude in his writing. Not loud or flashy, but quiet and constant. He gives thanks for the mentors he had, for the patience of his teachers, for the examples of justice he witnessed, even for the challenges that forced him to grow. He believes that everything is part of a larger order, that even the painful parts of life serve a role. This doesn't mean he's glad when bad things happen, but it does mean he sees meaning in them, a purpose, and that gives him peace. When you believe that nothing is random, that every experience can teach you, you become resilient. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What can I learn?" He often returns to simplicity. Don't talk more than you need to. Don't eat more than your body requires. Don't seek luxury for its own sake. These things make you soft, not happy. And he isn't preaching from a pedestal. He's reminding himself, an emperor surrounded by wealth and power, to stay grounded, to remember what truly matters. That's a lesson we still struggle with today. In a world obsessed with image and consumption, Marcus offers another way, a life stripped of noise, focused on virtue, filled with purpose. His reflections are not dramatic. They're disciplined. They repeat ideas again and again as if to hammer them into his soul. Be just, be brave, be humble, be mindful of death. These are not slogans, they are anchors. They remind him and us what it means to live well, not perfectly, but sincerely.
Toward the end of his writings, you can feel his tone shift, not darker, but deeper. He accepts that his time is short, that death may come soon, and he's not afraid. He's ready, because he has lived as best he could. He has tried each day to be useful, to grow wiser, to serve the common good. That's what he believes a human life is for. Not applause, not trophies, but contribution. He closes often with the image of the wheel, time moving in circles, everything returning. Empires rise and fall. Names are remembered, then forgotten. The sun sets, then rises again. So why cling to pride? Why fear change? It's all part of the same turning. Your role is to play your part with courage, with kindness, and with honor. And that is the final message of Meditations. Not to escape life, but to engage it. Not to numb yourself to pain, but to rise above it. Not to be perfect, but to be principled. If you can do that, if you can live each day as if it were your last, not in despair, but in devotion, then you will have lived as Marcus did, not as a god, not as a ruler, but as a man in full.
As the entries go on, a powerful pattern emerges. Marcus begins to see that true philosophy isn't about debating what is right, it's about doing what is right. He often reminds himself, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. It's direct, it's demanding, and it strips away the excuses. So much of our time is lost in overthinking, in waiting for the perfect moment or for clarity that never comes. But Marcus knew that virtue isn't complex, it's often simple. Do what's fair, speak what's true, be patient, hold the line, again and again. Not once in a while, not only when it's easy, but every single day. He explores the idea of obstacles, not just enduring them, but using them. He doesn't deny that life throws up barriers, but he refuses to be defeated by them. Instead, he reframes them. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way.
These are some of the most powerful words ever written about resilience. He's saying your challenges are your teachers. Your pain can forge strength. The thing you most resent might be the thing that refines your character. This idea is at the heart of Stoicism, the ability to turn misfortune into fuel, to become better not despite struggle, but because of it. He also spends time reflecting on the people who frustrate him. But instead of writing about revenge or judgment, he writes about understanding. He says people act out of ignorance of virtue, of perspective, of clarity. And just as you wouldn't get angry at a blind man for not seeing, you shouldn't get angry at someone who lacks wisdom. This is not weakness, it's realism. You can't control others, you can only control your own response. He even reminds himself that he's not perfect either, that he too makes mistakes, so why expect others to be flawless? This mindset leads him to mercy. When someone wrongs you, the instinct is to fight back, to win. But Marcus teaches that there's a deeper power in restraint, in understanding, in compassion. Not because you approve of wrongdoing, but because you refuse to be poisoned by it. He asks himself, what kind of man do I want to be? The kind who reacts to every insult, or the kind who keeps his dignity no matter what? In that moment, he chooses strength. Not the strength of the fist, but the strength of the soul.
He wrestles often with ambition, not because he doesn't have it, but because he sees how dangerous it can be. He warns himself not to chase reputation or praise. They're fleeting. Today's applause is tomorrow's silence. He writes, fame is emptiness. The only applause worth having is the quiet approval of your own conscience. And that is earned not through status, but through integrity, through honest effort, through unseen acts of goodness. It's not glamorous, but it's real. Marcus is especially clear when he writes about mortality. He reminds himself and us that death is not a tragedy. It is part of life. Just as a leaf falls from the tree, so too must we fall when our time comes. The point is not to fear death, but to live so well that when it comes, you are ready. He says, do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good. These aren't empty words. They're a challenge to stop waiting, to stop wasting, to live now and live well. He warns against gossip and distraction. He sees how easy it is to get pulled into other people's opinions, into news and drama and noise. He calls it a form of slavery, letting your mind be hijacked by things that don't matter. Instead, he urges solitude, silence, time to think, time to write. Because clarity doesn't come from chaos, it comes from stillness. And if you can't be alone with your own thoughts, you'll never know who you really are. He believes the mind is a powerful tool, but only when it's trained. Left alone, it wanders into fantasy, into complaint, into fear. But when disciplined, it becomes your greatest ally. It helps you focus, it helps you act, it helps you stay calm when the world goes mad. That's the ultimate Stoic goal. Not to change the world, but to keep your mind steady while the world spins. By the end of his meditations, Marcus has created something rare, a manual for living that doesn't demand perfection, but demands effort. He doesn't see himself as wise or superior, he sees himself as a man in training. Each day is a test, each moment a chance to return to virtue. That humility is what makes his words so timeless. He's not preaching, he's practicing, and inviting us to do the same.
In these final pages of his writings, Marcus becomes quieter, not less intense, but more distilled. His thoughts are shorter, sometimes only a sentence or two, but they carry the weight of a life examined deeply. It's as if he no longer needs to explain everything in detail. He simply reminds himself of what matters, like a sculptor who removes everything unnecessary until only the essence remains. He writes, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." There's nothing more to add, no room for interpretation. This is the clarity he has earned through years of reflection and practice. He also returns to the core Stoic idea that everything is change. Seasons turn, empires fall, bodies age, minds forget. Nothing lasts. But that's not depressing to him. It's liberating. It means you don't have to hold so tightly. It means you can let go of the fear of loss, because loss is inevitable. What you can do, what you must do, is live now. Do good now. Think clearly now, because the moment will pass, and then it will be gone. This awareness sharpens his sense of duty. As long as he breathes, he says, he must contribute. To sit idle is to betray your nature. You were made to serve, to reason, to help, even in sickness, even in hardship, even in old age. As long as your mind works, your purpose remains, and purpose gives strength, even when the body grows weak. He writes of his weariness, too, of the burdens of leadership, of the pain of watching others deceive or betray, but he never uses it as an excuse to abandon his values. If anything, it sharpens his commitment. The harder things get, the more important it is to stay anchored. He doesn't want to die with regrets. He doesn't want to reach the end having lived a life that wasn't truly his. So he clings to what is eternal, not fame or wealth, but reason, justice, and compassion.
In many entries, he speaks directly to death, not morbidly, but with clarity. You could leave life right now, he says. Let that determine what you do and say and think. It's not meant to scare you, it's meant to focus you. When you realize that every breath could be your last, you stop wasting time. You stop pretending. You stop postponing your best self. And that's the kind of urgency he lived with. Not panic, but purpose. Not anxiety, but attention. There's also a softness in his later words, a kind of spiritual peace. He doesn't speak of gods with fire or fear. He sees the divine in the order of things, in the cycles of nature, in the logic of cause and effect. Whether or not you believe in a god, you can feel the sacredness of his view. Life is not random, he says. It is woven, and you are a thread in the fabric. Important, but not central. Meaningful, but not eternal. You do your part, you pass on. The pattern continues. This perspective makes him more forgiving of others, of the world, even of himself. He knows he has failed at times, been impatient, proud, distracted, but he also knows that he tried. Every day, he tried. And that's what gives him peace. Not perfection, but persistence. That's the Stoic legacy. Not cold strength, but warm resilience. Not detachment, but devotion. To the work, to the truth, to the moment. In the end, Meditations isn't just a book. It's a mirror. It reflects back to you the kind of life you could live if you were more honest, more brave, more free. It's not a sermon, it's a challenge. And it doesn't promise comfort, it promises clarity. If you accept that life is short, that others are flawed, and that control is limited, then you can finally stop resisting reality and start shaping your response. Because that's all you really have, your response to pain, to change, to uncertainty. You can meet it with fear, or with focus. You can meet it with resentment, or with resolve. Marcus chose resolve, and his words, quiet, grounded, timeless, are a gift to help us do the same.